Today marks a turning point as Israel and the United States launched a coordinated assault on Iran, triggering devastating strikes in Tehran and across the country. According to the Iranian Red Crescent, these attacks have claimed over 200 lives, and the chaos is escalating with more explosions rocking the region this evening. In response, Iran struck back fiercely, extending their retaliation beyond their borders with a series of attacks targeting neighboring regions, including Bahrain. The turmoil has ensnared thousands, tourists and locals alike, casting a shadow over the Middle East. Earlier today, dramatic scenes unfolded in Dubai after an Iranian missile hit the Palm Hotel, capturing the alarming reach of the conflict. Meanwhile, in Tel Aviv, where a state of emergency now grips the nation, the atmosphere is tense and heavy with uncertainty. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu delivered a televised address that sent shockwaves through the region, claiming a monumental victory. He announced that the compound of the tyrant Khamenei had been obliterated. All indications show that this tyrant is no longer with us, Netanyahu declared, signaling a profound shift in the geopolitical landscape. Across the Atlantic, former President Donald Trump acknowledged the escalating military action with a direct message to the Iranian people, urging them to seize control and take governance into their own hands once the conflict subsides. "When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take," he said, emphasizing a call for transformational change within Iran. "Our eyes are now fixed on Mar-a-Lago, where we await further insights from Trump and possible reactions to Israel's claims about Iran's leadership." On the ground in Jerusalem, our correspondent Hugo Basha reports on the unfolding situation. Israeli officials, though yet to confirm officially, have expressed growing confidence that Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has perished in the strikes. Israeli media outlets have been quick to relay statements from anonymous sources supporting this claim. This development followed Netanyahu's powerful national broadcast, where he asserted that the threat poised to destroy Israel has been dismantled. He called out to the Iranian people once again, urging them to embrace the moment and push for regime change. This sentiment mirrors President Trump's earlier messages, highlighting regime change as a critical objective of the current military operation. The joint Us Israeli campaign struck deeply at Iran's command infrastructure, with one of its prime targets being the supreme leader's compound in Tehran. These actions signal an unprecedented chapter in the region's history, with profound implications for international relations and the future of Middle Eastern stability. As the dust settles and the world watches closely, the coming days will reveal the true impact of these seismic events. Let's talk about the initial phase of this operation. From what we understand, the Israelis launched their attack this morning during daylight hours, possibly because they believed the Iranian leadership would feel more secure at that time. If that's true, it raises the question, have the Israelis completed their mission against Iran, leaving future strikes mainly to the Americans? Well, the truth is, we just don't know yet. If this intel checks out, it showcases the high level of intelligence Israel, and possibly the U.S. has on Iranian leadership, The Israeli Prime Minister has long defended the idea of a significant military operation against Iran, citing the existential threat posed by Iran's nuclear program. He's been sounding this alarm for decades. Meanwhile, Iran and the U.S. have been in negotiations, though it's unclear if the talks aim for a deal to limit Iran's nuclear ambitions. At the same time, the Prime Minister has recently emphasized the threat from Iran's ballistic missile capabilities. The big question now is, what happens next if the reports about the supreme leader are confirmed? We've heard rumors of an Iranian plan in the works. Over recent weeks, President Trump threatened military action against Iran, even considering striking the supreme leader himself. This comes amid the largest U.S. military buildup in the Middle East since 2003. But if the supreme leader is gone, who might replace him? And what type of leadership will emerge in Iran? Many experts caution that a change won't necessarily mean opposition forces take over or that democracy will blossom. The political landscape in Iran is complex, and new leadership could go in multiple directions. This development dramatically shifts the landscape, not only for Iran, but also regarding potential future operations involving Israel and the U.S. This evening's news, if the Israeli reports are accurate that the supreme leader has died, is a pivotal moment. Now let's turn to our chief international correspondent, Ledoucet, to explore the implications of this suggestion. Lee, you've heard the Israeli claim that the supreme leader is dead. If this is confirmed, what could it mean moving forward? This moment is truly extraordinary for the Islamic Republic of Iran, especially if reports confirm the death of their supreme leader. The significance of him coming under attack in the initial hours of this major joint military operation by Israel and the United States cannot be overstated. The strikes targeting his residence alone were profoundly symbolic. If his death is confirmed, it's important to understand that Iran has been preparing for such a scenario for many years. Following the 12-day conflict last year, when Israeli forces assassinated at least 9 nuclear scientists and key security chiefs during the opening night, it became clear that the Ayatollah was a primary target. As a result, Iran has been actively preparing both alternative security leaders and plans for succession. Intelligence from Tehran suggests that a shortlist was drawn up to identify someone capable of stepping in should the Ayatollah be killed. Iran's political structure involves an institutional framework known as the Assembly of Experts, comprised of senior clerics, many in their 80s like the Ayatollah himself. Their sole purpose is to select the next supreme leader. For years, there has been speculation over potential successors, including his son, Moshabbeh, who is the grandson of Iran's first revolutionary leader, Ayatollah Khomeini. Moshabbeh has increasingly taken on a more prominent role recently. Whatever the outcome, Iran is prepared to ensure a smooth transition. Once official confirmation of the leader's death is announced, the Iranian government will likely send a clear message. Their system remains intact and functional despite these events. The smooth succession process is designed to convey strength and continuity. Lee, reflecting on this situation, it seems that because of these extensive preparations, the death of the supreme leader, while a major event, might not radically alter Iran's stance toward the West and the United States. The continuity of policy and ideology is expected to persist under new leadership. Clive, though, your point about continuity in such a moment is compelling. This is far from a normal period. It's an exceptionally turbulent and transformative time. On our recent visit to Iran, it was clear the country feels fundamentally changed. The ruling order appears significantly weakened, and after the brutal suppression of last month's protests, which claimed thousands of lives, the people are full of anger and grief. The atmosphere is raw and charged with emotion. This is an extraordinary and unpredictable moment, only hours into unfolding events. The Islamic Republic will undoubtedly face a massive shock from the loss of its supreme leader, no matter how meticulously they try to maintain stability. Given Islamic traditions, the leader will be buried soon after his death, likely triggering an intense outpouring of emotion among his followers. In short, while the system provides for succession and aims to project continuity, the reality on the ground suggests this is a watershed moment for Iran with wide-reaching consequences yet to be fully understood. Since the Iranian Revolution of 1979, the Revolutionary Guard Corps has had a clear and unwavering directive to defend and uphold the Islamic Republic. This group of hardliners has always been fiercely loyal, but recent events suggest they could harden even more. Yet amid these shifting dynamics, a new chapter begins, reminiscent of the political shifts seen in Venezuela. Could someone new emerge, someone who chooses a different path? While this remains uncertain, their core mission endures, the preservation of the regime above all else. Ayatollah Khamenei made this clear. The survival of the Islamic Republic is the unbreakable red line. Individual leaders may change, but the power and control held by this ruling elite remain constant, firmly anchoring them at the helm of Iran's future. However, with the unpredictable nature of the current military operation, nothing can be taken for granted. In these extraordinary times, Lee Ducey, our chief international correspondent, shares his insights. The attack unfolding today follows weeks of growing tension across the region, with U.S. forces steadily amassing around Iran. In retaliation, Iran has launched a series of coordinated strikes across the Middle East. Jeremy Bowen, our international editor, elaborates on the scale of American military presence. It is the largest concentration of U.S. power in the Middle East since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. The U.S. leadership believes that this time, overwhelming force might drive regime change in Iran without sparking the disastrous fallout from the Iraq War, where removing Saddam Hussein unleashed years of conflict and gave rise to extremist groups. Earlier today, just after breakfast in Tehran, Israel and the U.S. initiated hostilities against Iran, striking sites across the country's capital and beyond. Information remains scarce and chaotic. Videos have surfaced showing attacks on civilian locations like a school in southern Iran, while Iranian state television reports 85 fatalities. This moment is fraught with danger and uncertainty, especially given that it unfolds in what many consider the world's most volatile region. Israel describes the military operation as a preemptive strike, undertaken without presenting evidence of any imminent threat. Sirens immediately wailed across Israeli cities, signaling the onset of war, a political decision aimed squarely at regime change in Tehran. Israel's leadership declared with conviction, "In today's powerful surprise attack, we destroyed the compound of the tyrant Khamenei." For more than 3 decades, this brutal and cruel dictator fought against the entire world and made his own people suffer. His relentless efforts to eradicate Israel have been thwarted. This plan no longer exists, and all indications point to this tyrant no longer standing. Satellite imagery confirms the destruction of the compound belonging to Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, although officials in Tehran insist he was not present during the strike. Iran responded swiftly to its threats, aiming its retaliation at an extensive network of U.S. bases scattered across the Gulf region, including locations in Qatar and Israel. The situation remains fluid and tense, with the potential to spiral into a larger and more devastating conflict. In Dubai, tourists seeking winter sunshine were abruptly reminded of the harsh realities that lie beneath the region's glittering surface. Not far away, in Bahrain, a serious strike targeted the large U.S. naval base, a clear message amidst rising tensions. Iran declared its intent to use more powerful missiles this time, one surpassing those launched during last summer's conflict. As an interceptor rocket soared into the sky, Iran hoped the U.S. and Israel would soon exhaust their defensive missile supply. Supporters of the Iranian regime rallied around their flag, showing that even the assassination of the supreme leader wouldn't topple their complex political system, which is deeply rooted in ideology, corruption, and brutal enforcement. Back in January, major protests swept across Iran, driven by widespread economic hardship. These demonstrations were met with deadly force, security forces fired live bullets, killing thousands. Despite these hardships, former US President Donald Trump promised protection to protesters, convinced that continued pressure from America and Israel could eventually bring down the regime. "When we finish," Trump declared, "you will have the chance to take back your government. This may be your only opportunity for generations. You've sought America's help for years and never received it. Until now. I am giving you what you want, so let's see your response." As dusk fell, the Fairmont Hotel on Dubai's Palm Jumeirah became engulfed in flames after being struck. Whether the fire was caused directly by a missile or by its debris remains unclear, but the damage was severe. Meanwhile, Bahrain experienced significant devastation as well, underscoring Iran's formidable arsenal of accurate, short-range missiles. Iran's leadership now faces a grave challenge, navigating the ongoing war, ensuring its survival, and managing the uncertain aftermath. Jeremy Bowen of BBC News reflected on these developments with somber insight. In Tehran, panic erupted as explosions shattered the morning calm around 9:40 a.m., a typical working day disrupted by the outbreak of war. Near Palestine Street, close to our office, all buildings trembled as fears spread through the streets filled with terrified citizens. Yet, amidst the chaos, some expressed a different reaction. A woman wept tears of joy upon hearing that the Supreme Leader's office had been hit, while teenagers at a local school celebrated. Bitcoin Abbasi from the BBC Persian service shared a powerful yet distressing report highlighting the human costs behind these events. Earlier, shocking images had surfaced from January's protests, showing thousands killed after government forces opened fire on those demanding regime change. This brutality convinced many that only military intervention could end the regime's rule. However, public sentiment remains fragile and could shift dramatically if civilians fall victim to the current attacks. Many Iranians watch anxiously, their hopes and fears intertwined as the conflict escalates. As news spread an Israeli strike hitting a girls' school in Minab, killing dozens, outrage swept through the nation. The first victims of this conflict, young girls, became a stark and tragic symbol of the war's brutal toll. This heart-wrenching image begs a haunting question. Is this the war you truly support? The mood throughout the country is a complex blend of fear and fragile hope. Many fear the violence is far from over, bracing for further attacks. Yet, for others, this moment carries a flicker of possibility. A chance the regime's tightly held grip on power might finally be challenged. Iran has been deeply scarred by months of protests and deadly crackdowns, leaving uncertainty as the prevailing force. As the smoke from the strikes begins to clear, Iranians grapple with the harsh consequences, holding on to hope for a future where fear no longer dominates their lives. This is Boran Abbasi reporting for BBC News. Joining us now is Bahrain to shed light on the unfolding developments. Recently, there were reports suggesting the Supreme Leader might have been killed in the airstrikes. Bahrain, what initial reactions are emerging from the Iranian public? Well, we have an official response from the Supreme Leader's office dismissing those claims as psychological warfare aimed at demoralizing and discouraging the Iranian people. Satellite images released earlier show the leader's compound suffered significant damage, and though state television promised a video statement from the Supreme Leader, it has yet to be aired. So while we await confirmation of his status, the office insists the assassination rumors are enemy propaganda. Still, for many Iranians, confirmation of the Supreme Leader's death would bring mixed emotions, but largely a sense of relief. He ruled Iran with an iron fist for over 3 decades, making him the longest-serving leader in the Middle East since the former Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. His reign was marked by brutal crackdowns on peaceful protesters, the deaths of thousands, imprisonment of ordinary citizens seeking a normal life, and pervasive suppression of reform. Surrounded by hardliners, his staunch anti-Western stance left Iran isolated and suffering under crippling sanctions. For countless Iranians desperate for change, news of his demise could symbolize the dawn of a new era. Turning now to the current state on the ground. Maine. How are people coping in major cities, especially in Tehran? Are they taking shelter amid fears of escalating conflict? There's a palpable mix of confusion and fear throughout the communities. Many are worried about what the coming hours and days might bring. Yet, amidst the anxiety, there's also a noticeable undercurrent of cautious celebration, especially among those who have long called for regime change. The atmosphere is tense but charged with the hope that this could mark a turning point for the nation. The main concern right now is that people were completely unprepared for such a crisis. The internet is entirely down. Phone lines have gone silent, and there's no way for them to connect or communicate. They don't know where to seek shelter or safety because none have been set up and the government hasn't equipped them for this kind of emergency. Many voice frustration that although Israeli and American strikes bear responsibility, the regime inside Iran is equally accountable for failing to protect its own civilians. Some even see the airstrikes as a possible catalyst for regime change, hoping that removing officials through such means might bring the reforms they have long sought. Only weeks ago, thousands of unarmed protesters were killed while demanding the regime's downfall, and this latest unrest is just another chapter. Since the early 2000s, calls for reform have been met with harsh crackdowns, leading some to believe that only drastic measures will bring about change. It's an incredibly challenging and dangerous time for millions of ordinary Iranians. Many thanks to Baran Abazi from the BBC Persian service for her insights. Shifting focus, Frank Gardner, our security correspondent, highlights the immense military power the U.S. has deployed in the Middle East, the largest in decades, featuring 2 carrier strike groups and over 200 warplanes.